Hey, good afternoon to you. 507 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Michael Whatley, chairman of the Republican National Committee, joins us right here on the show at 5:30. We'll talk to him about this year's election integrity efforts. The changing of the guard has led to a big push on election integrity. So we'll discuss what they're up to. Also, Donald Trump has some big plans for the debates against Joe Biden. Will Biden accept those plans? We'll discuss it all ahead. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. It was a week ago that a crazy America-hating extremist by the name of Tarek Bazzi in Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, declared, that the protest, that he's anti-America and led chants of death to America, that is, in the streets of, yes, one and the same, the country, America.
We've been asked in the past, why are our protests on the International Day of Quds, why are they so anti-America? Why don't we just focus more on Israel and not talk so much about America? Gaza has shown the entire world why these protests are so anti-America. Because it's the United States government that provides the funds for all of the atrocities that we just heard about. And this is why Imam Khomeini, who declared the International Day of Quds, this is why he would say to pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America.
Death to America, death to America, death to America, over and over last week. Also, death to Israel was shortly behind it. This is the same guy a couple years ago, Tarek Bazzi, who clarified for everyone that when they say from the river to the sea, they do actually mean the eradication of Israel and the Jewish people who live there. That's quite clearly what they mean when they're chanting about it. Today, the congresswoman who represents that district in Michigan, Rshida Tlaib, was approached by a reporter from the Fox News channel, Hillary Vaughn. Hillary Vaughn sees her in the halls of Congress and says, well, this is perfect. I should ask her whether or not she condemns the vile rhetoric that's taking place inside of her own district. Death to America? Do you condemn that? Here is Rshida Tlaib's emotionally incontinent response.
Congresswoman Tlaib.
Fox News. I don't talk to Fox News.
At a rally in your district, people were chanting death to America. Do you condemn?
Talk to Fox News.
But do you condemn chants of death to America?
I don't talk to people that use racist tropes.
Why can't you just say whether or not you condemn people chanting death to America? Why are you afraid to talk to Fox?
Fox News is not listen, using racist tropes towards my community is what Fox News is about, and I don't talk to Fox News.
Is death to America racist?
Fox News.
Is chanting death to America racist?
I'm talking about your guys' racist tropes. You know, you guys know exactly what you do. I know you're Islamophobic, but you guys got to go deal with it on your own self. You're not going to use me.
That woman is a crazy person. A, that's one of the conclusions from that audio. B, she supports the chants. How hard is it to say you don't support the chants? It's the easiest thing in the world. You don't have to like Fox. You could even add in your little dig at the end. I don't think Fox is a real news organization, but of course I don't support these kinds of chants. I condemn them. How hard would it be to do that? It wouldn't be hard at all. It's the English language. You can use it. But Rshida Tlaib cannot even bring herself to do this because that is how she either agrees with them wholeheartedly or she doesn't want to dare separate herself from these people. These are her constituents. They put her in office. The Death to America crowd put Rshida Tlaib in office. What else are we supposed to conclude? You listen to that audio, you think she's not Rshida Tlaib, she's Rshida Taliban. She straight up endorsed it by not coming out and condemning it. What other conclusion can you draw? And why is Fox News the only freaking news outlet asking about this? Now, let me just point out, they're not actually the only news outlet asking about this. The Daily Caller has been asking about this. There are a number of conservative news outlets, independent media, to the extent that they have access to any of these people trying to ask what the heck is going on. How can you have people chanting death to America in the streets of America? Well, are you going to do something about this? Are you going to condemn it at the very least? Are you going to investigate this? So the White House at the beginning of the week gave a tepid response. Well, yeah, we condemn it. They gave it to the Daily Caller. And then the broader media refused to pick it up because they didn't want to have to explain the predicate for why the White House was condemning the language. If they explained the predicate, they would reveal that you have Democrats chanting death to America in the streets of America. They didn't want to tell that story. There's an election on the line. You can't have Biden vulnerable here. And that includes telling people that the White House had offered any words of condemnation whatsoever. Oh, no, that could cost Biden Michigan. There's people who agree with the death to America chanters. Don't let them hear that the White House condemned them, so we're not going to talk about it at all. We can't bring up this story. It's filtered through the lens of politics. Yesterday, you had Karine Jean-Pierre field a question on the subject. One question on the subject. Yeah, we condemn it. Are we going to hear from the president? No, it should be enough from me. Can we move on already? And the media did. The media did move on. Like lightning. They're like, nah, we can't really talk about this. And so Hillary Vaughn, to her great credit, so then credit to Fox, says, hey, Rshida, Congresswoman, do you condemn? And instead, she turns it into attack on the press, attacking Fox for asking questions. And notice she makes all sorts of accusations. You're Islamophobic. I don't talk to you. And she's like, whatever. She's like accusing Fox of being bigoted. Okay, be specific. What do you mean by that? If you're going to lay out an allegation like that, I will. She could have even couched it with tabled the question. She'd be like, I will answer this question from a different outlet, but your outlet has blah, blah, blah. She doesn't do that. The left doesn't feel any obligation whatsoever to explain themselves. So that's the Rshida Tlaib response today, where she's willing to go to bat for people who are chanting death to America in the streets of the country. How completely insane. Completely insane. Let's take Dave in Fairfax now. Line 3. Dave, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon.
Hey there, Dave. What's on your mind, sir?
It's time for the news outlets, the conservative news outlets, to turn the trick back on the Democrats. They need to demand that Rshida Tlaib and others disavow October 7th, disavow rape as a method of war, disavow the chants. And just like they pursued Trump and they pursued all the Republicans, pursue them with demands for disavowing all of these heinous things.
100%. This is the rules that they've created. And one of the reasons why this makes so much sense, Dave, is that it directly involves these people. They've been indulging the extremists in their own party. And so they should be called to account for the very behavior that they've been indulging. So these are Democrats in the streets of Dearborn, Michigan, chanting death to America. You have a congresswoman who represents their district. The very least you can possibly do is ask, like, hey, do you support what they're saying? Do you disavow these chants for death to America? It's the smallest thing you can do as an act of journalism.
And we have to have faith that the American people, when they see that and when they see the disingenuous reaction, will conclude that the Democrats are telling lies and they're not being truthful actors.
Yeah, I think, God willing, people are waking up to this, but more of these important questions are essential to waking people up. Dave, you're totally right about that, and it's an important construct. All of these guys should be called to the mat on this. Thank you, Dave. Good call. So that's the latest out of Rshida Tlaib and what's going on in Michigan. There's a very rapid effort to try and make this whole thing go away. Oh, no. Oh, death to America? No, let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that at all. That didn't happen. What are you talking about? One other, I need to shift to another threat to American liberties today. The Biden administration is trying to expand its control of American gun owners today. The United States Department of Justice published a new rule today that massively expands background checks for gun purchases. The Daily Caller report here. The Department of Justice published a new federal regulation Wednesday that will expand the regime of federal firearms background checks to cover guns purchased online at gun shows and informal markets. Here's the thing. If you're going to buy a gun from a licensed dealer anywhere in the country, including at a gun show, you go through a background check. For those of us who've bought guns at gun shows, I happen to know one. He might be sitting right here. You go through a background check when you buy a gun. There's no such thing as a gun show loophole. That is a lie. It's always been a lie. Every time they say a gun show loophole, it's not a gun show loophole. There is no such thing. But what the government is attempting to do is expand its ability to track gun ownership everywhere. This is the gun registry. They want to know if you're a gun owner. They want to track you down. And we should be doing, as a country, we should be doing everything we can to stop them from keeping track of gun owners and who owns a gun and what kind of gun and what room do you keep it in. I had a buddy that bought a shotgun. He was able to get it into his house in D.C. a couple years back. He told me the process for doing that was so insane. Thankfully, I don't live in the district. He said he had to tell the district what closet he kept his shotgun in. You had to tell the government? I'm sorry, I think we've inverted the entire relationship. That's not how this works. It shouldn't be. In August of 2023, the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives announced a new rulemaking proposal to redefine when someone is, quote, engaged in business as a gun dealer, subject to background check regulations, using new authorities granted by a bipartisan gun control law passed by Congress following a deadly school shooting at Uvalde, Texas in 2022. The measure is the latest action by the Biden administration to advance gun control measures, which have included rules to crack down on the sale of unserialized firearms known commonly as ghost guns. Under this regulation, it will not matter if guns are sold on the internet at a gun show or at a brick and mortar store. If you sell guns predominantly to earn a profit, you must be licensed and you must conduct background checks. This is already what is he talking about? If you are in the business, the actual business of selling guns, this is what you have to do. This is not new. Nothing about that is new at all. Which means that they're getting involved in your relationships now. They want to intercept whether or not you sell a gun to your buddy or your kid. The government wants its grubby little hands all over all of that. And they have no right to be there. There's an amazing piece of audio today. An amazing piece of audio that I just encountered. You know that gun control guy, David Hogg? You remember him? David Hogg? So he was participating in a panel, I believe in New Hampshire this week, and he was confronted by a woman who survived Mao's regime in China. She wanted to have a conversation with him about law-abiding citizens owning guns in the United States of America, exercising their constitutional rights. It is magical audio and one of the most succinct takedowns of the gun grabbers you'll ever hear. I'll play. David Hogg is a 23-year-old gun-grabbing activist. He rose to fame after the Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, an awful shooting. But the answer to violent criminals is to stop them. Remember, the sheriff's deputy just stood outside as all of those kids were gunned down. It was awful. The good guy with a gun refused to do his job. Now he's debating, he's doing debates on why he thinks gun grabbing is so important. And he was up in Dartmouth, apparently, yesterday, participating in a debate there. And during the Q&A session, a woman who survived Mao's China got up to the microphone, and this is the exchange that ensued.
Hi, my name is Lily Tang Williams. Welcome to my live free or die state. Actually, I am a Chinese immigrant who survived communism. And under Mao, 40 million people were starving to death after he sold communism to them. And 20 million people died, murdered during his Cultural Revolution. So my question to you, David, is that can you guarantee me, a gun owner tonight, our government in the U.S., in D.C., will never become a tyrannical government. Can you guarantee that to me?
There's no way I can ever guarantee that any government will not be tyrannical.
Well, then the debate on gun control is over, because I will never give up my guns. Never. And you should go to China to see how gun control works for dictatorship of CCP.
That is some of the most succinct, that might actually be the single most succinct piece of audio on this debate I've ever heard. Can you guarantee the government will never become tyrannical? I can't guarantee the government will never become tyrannical. Well, then the debate on gun control is over. That woman read the Second Amendment. She may be familiar with the history here. She's certainly familiar with the perils. Coming up, Michael Whatley, the RNC chairman, is here. We're going to talk to him about election integrity efforts underway right now at the Republican National Committee and President Trump's latest offer to Joe Biden about those debates. Will there be any? President Trump would like some. We'll see. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. If you're going to allow the people to choose their government, well, they've got to have faith in the way you actually conduct the choice. Election integrity, a huge conversation. And for people who care about it, well, hopefully my next guest can help bring you some sense of certainty about what's ahead. The new RNC chairman, Michael Whatley, joins us now. Sir, great to have you with us.
It's good to be on with you.
Mike, it's your signal's breaking up a little bit, so let's hope it sounds great as we talk to you. But how you settling into the new gig? It must be you must feel like you're running a million miles an hour right now.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. It was really fun to be with the president down in Georgia and Florida yesterday for a series of events, and today was up in Congress meeting with Steve Scalise and a number of others up here. And we're running 100 miles an hour.
I saw all these videos yesterday of Donald Trump in Georgia, namely the ones of him at Chick-fil-A, buying shakes for everybody. What was it like being on the campaign trail with him and seeing him in that kind of retail politics environment?
You know, he is so good at just connecting with normal people. The Chick-fil-A stop was absolutely hysterical because it was in a precinct that's 94% black and 94% Democrat. And he walked in there and got absolutely mobbed. And just, it was authentic. It was real. You all saw the TV hits on it, but even once the cameras turned off, he kind of stayed there and was mobbed talking to people for another 10 or 15 minutes. And then when we head to the airport, he's spending 10, 15, 20 minutes with all of the police officers and all of the military guys that are there to protect him. And, he is just really, truly a man of the people. And you can tell that it drives him every day when he wakes up. We're going to go fight for Americans.
And as I mentioned at the outset, I do want to have a conversation with you here about election integrity. We'll get into that in just a moment. But one more thing on President Trump's campaign, at least. I saw this morning that President Trump is now indicating that he would like to debate Joe Biden early and often. What can you tell us about the debates and what the President Trump would like to see out of them?
Yeah, the president has made it absolutely clear that he will debate Joe Biden anywhere, anytime, on any platform. And I think that the American people absolutely deserve that. We've never had a contrast between two candidates that is bigger and more of a bright line between Joe Biden and President Trump. And, we have issues with the debate commission because they want to hold these debates after people have already started voting. We think you need to have them early. We think you need to have multiple debates. And, we're kind of waiting to see what President Biden's team is going to come up with as their excuse for not wanting to put Biden on a debate stage with the president. But we are totally ready to go.
So I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but if the first debate occurs as intended, how long after the beginning of voting would it actually be the first time people see these two men debate in this cycle?
Well, I mean, by then we expect we're already going to have 1 million people that have cast votes. You know, by the proposed third debate, they're talking about almost 9 million people will have cast their votes before they get a chance to see the debate. So, you know, and look, the American people know the record that President Trump put together. They know about his great economy. They know that he closed the border. They know that we were in a strong place across the world, and that under Joe Biden, everything is a train wreck. But you really do want to have an opportunity to see that debate before 9 million people go vote.
Will NBC be among the debate moderators? I noticed that they hired your predecessor for like 8 minutes, and then they fired her because she was too controversial. Never mind, they had Michael Avenatti live on the air from prison this week. Is NBC going to be allowed to have moderators for these general election debates?
You know, I think the biggest question is going to be whether or not that the staff talent that they have is going to allow them to cover the debate. You know, you really, you know, is Chuck Todd going to let them talk about President Trump or moderate a debate? Look, the hypocrisy that we saw in terms of them having Jen Psaki walk straight out of the White House onto the MSNBC set, not as a contributor, but as a host, and then they have a complete meltdown about hiring a Republican, absolutely ridiculous.
But as far as excluding them as a moderator, is that on the table?
Look, I would say this. The president has been very clear. He will debate Joe Biden anywhere, anytime, on any platform.
Okay, so we're not discussing moderators today, but we are. But for now, but it is likely that that these big legacy outlets, and usually the reason for this is because they've got the resources, they've got the money, they can put the stage together. Those big legacy outlets, some of them could be among the moderators for the debate.
Yeah, conceivably they could, you know, but I think, you know, and one of the big things that we're going to fight about is who's going to be the moderators. I mean, in 2020, you had one of Joe Biden's former staffers as a moderator for the debate. That's just a little bit biased, we think.
Just a little. All right, let's move to the issue of election integrity. Prior to you arriving at the RNC, there were lots of questions about what's the RNC up to when it comes to making sure that we can have faith in our election. Give us a sense of what you discovered when you arrived at the RNC and what speed you're moving at now.
We are moving very quick, very aggressive. And I will say this, that prior to becoming the chair, I had been serving as the general counsel here. And so I had actually started to put together our election integrity program. And so we obviously have juiced that up a bunch. Look, when I got my very first phone call from President Trump to talk about taking over the RNC, the one thing that he continually stressed was we've got to have election integrity. We have to be able to protect the ballot. The RNC for 100 years plus has all about get the vote, get the vote, get the vote. Now we have two missions: turn out the vote and protect the ballot. And so we really, truly have built an election integrity program, and we're going to do two things. First off, we are going to make sure that we have good rules of the road, right? We want, you know, protections for absentee ballots. We want voter ID. We don't want drop boxes. These are the things that we're going to fight for in every state to make sure that we have fair, accurate, secure, and transparent elections. And if we don't get them, we're going to go to court. We're going to file suits. We've already filed 80 different lawsuits in 24 different states around the country to make sure that we have good, solid, you know, guardrails in place to protect the elections. The second thing we're going to do is we are going to put people in the room. We want tens of thousands of volunteers, thousands of attorneys in every single state across the country to make sure that, you know, we are protecting the ballot. I really, truly want people in the room when the votes are being cast and when they're being counted.
RNC Chairman Michael Whatley, compare the current posture towards 2020, if you will, because one of the things I recall from 2020 is that a number of courts were throwing out challenges in the wake of the election saying, hey, Republicans, you should have raised these challenges before the election. I know you're talking about right now many of these lawsuits all across the country that are being brought up now. How different is the legal approach at this moment than it was in 2020?
We are much more aggressive. We are much more proactive than we were in 2020. And I think, you know, look, it is far better to have a police car parked in front of a storefront window than to call them after a rock gets thrown through it. What we want to make sure that we're doing is we are having people in the room when the votes are being cast and when they're being counted. And one thing that we've got to keep in mind is that prior to the 2020 election, the RNC was actually under a court order and could not engage in election integrity mission. And so now that consent decree is gone, and we are fully able to ramp up and make sure that it's easy to vote and hard to cheat.
What does the opposing force look like right now? What are Democrat lawyers doing across the country, and does it have you concerned?
Yeah, look, I think that they are going to spend a ton of money that is going to be putting, lawsuits together on their end. They have already done it. But I think, the biggest thing that we're seeing from those guys is that they are playing defense everywhere we go. We are the ones that are playing offense. We're playing offense politically. We're playing offense litigation-wise in terms of the election integrity effort. And frankly, they are more than welcome to go on MSNBC and shout from the rooftops about how terrible Republicans are, because we want common sense election integrity. Over 70% of the American voters want voter ID. They want common sense protections on absentee ballots, and they want ballots that are going to be counted on Election Day. So we feel like we are absolutely in the mainstream of, like I said earlier, make it easy to vote and hard to cheat.
One of the things I've been encouraged by is that at least I believe 27 states have either banned or restricted the use of what we refer to now as Zuckerbucks, which are these rich lefties come in and they spend all this money on the election systems of areas that have a lot of Democrat voters primarily. Is that something that the RNC is going to stay active in?
Oh, yeah. Look, we have filed lawsuits in multiple states to make sure that we ban Zuckerbucks. And we've got, really good wins in places like North Carolina, Georgia, and Wisconsin, where we've been able to make sure that you can't do that. And so, in other states where they're still valid, we're going to go challenge them, and we're going to continue to fight on this. For
those states that still have vulnerabilities, like I think of like a California, and their ballot harvesting is completely legal there, even though it's entirely corrupt. What is the RNC and the Republican parties all across the country, what are they going to be doing in those states?
In those states, we are going to ballot harvest. If it is legal, if it is a tool that the Democrats are using right now, we are going to use it. We actually, for the first time during this 2022 election cycle, put together a ballot harvesting program out in California, and we got a number of wins. We actually had a number of wins that we won in districts that Joe Biden had carried, that nobody thought we were going to be able to win, because we were able to use that tool in our toolkit. Look, we don't like ballot harvesting. We want to make sure where we can get rid of it, we can. But if it's legal, we're going to use it.
And then as far as the strategy for encouraging Republicans to actually participate, I mean, some number of the people that you're speaking to right now, and certainly Republicans across the country, are very disheartened about the state of our election system, to the point, and we saw it, say, in the special election in Georgia a couple years ago, to the point that they say, well, I don't even believe it. I don't think the system has enough credibility. My view, RNC Chairman Michael Whatley, has been, you need to overwhelm the election. That's the answer here, that people need to overwhelm the polls with votes. How are you focusing on those voters to make sure that they do appear and they do pull the lever?
Yeah, so there's two things that we want to do, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we were talking with President Trump earlier, and I think, I threw out the phrase "too big to rig." And the next thing I know, we were at a rally a couple of weeks later in Greensboro, North Carolina, and they had "too big to rig" signs that were going up all across the audience there. So that was pretty fun to see. But look, our Get Out the Vote efforts are going to be really focused on a couple of things. First off, we know over 50% of all voters are going to vote before Election Day. We've got to talk to them before they vote. So we've got to make sure that we have an early vote program that's out there, and we're very aggressively talking to people that before they go vote, right? So we're trying to bank the vote with those early voters that are already going out there. The other thing that we're trying to do is make sure that those low propensity voters, the people who, if they vote, they're going to vote Republican, but they've only voted once out of the last 4 or 5 election cycles, we got to turn them out. We got to go communicate with those folks directly. Then the last thing we need to do is really focus on these minority communities that are breaking away from the Democrats. Black voters, Hispanic voters, Asian American voters are all leaving the Democratic Party in droves. we got to make sure that we get them past the independent over to the Republican candidates. And so we're reaching out and talking to those communities as well. So when we have a real true get out the vote operation, and we match that with our protect the ballot programs and the election integrity programs where people trust the outcome that is going to be fair, that makes it a lot more likely for them to go vote.
The last piece of this is you talk about low propensity voters. Some people have never voted. There's people who still need to be registered to vote who might be inclined to support Donald Trump and other Republicans on the ballot this year. I've heard in the past that, outdoorsmen and hunters and gun shows and churches, there's all sorts of places you can go. I know Scott Pressler up in Pennsylvania, who the RNC is doing some work with now to get people registered to vote, has been working on that. What kind of voter registration effort is the RNC undertaking?
It's a massive effort, and we work with all of our state parties to make sure that they're the ones that are out there on the ground. But I'll tell you this, nobody has ever created more voters than Donald Trump. I mean, at rally after rally after rally, I have people come up to me and say, I'm 63 years old. I've never voted in my life. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. Or I've had people come up and say, I'm 55 years old. How do I register to vote? Because I want to vote for Donald Trump. It is remarkable to look at the number of people that he has generated as new voters, both in 2016 and in 2020. And we're very excited about having him at the top of the ticket here in 24.
All right, RNC Chairman Michael Whatley, new to the job, but already moving, as I said, 1,000,000 miles an hour. Sir, thank you very much. Good to have you on the show today, and look forward to talking to you again soon throughout this election.
Yeah, look, I really appreciate it, and thanks to your listeners as well.
I know we fought a revolution to break away from them, but sometimes the Brits are actually ahead of us on the common sense stuff these days. I don't know how that's even possible, but here we are. Hollywood Reporter today, J.K. Rowling is saying she won't forgive Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson for trans stance. I'm not sure their headline is exactly right here. Remember, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson are the stars of the movie Harry Potter, the book that J.K. Rowling wrote, and which has turned her, I think she's a billionaire now from all of that. She should be, based on all the success of that particular series. On Wednesday, the BBC came out. There was a 4-year review investigating gender care commissioned by their National Health Service. The report concluded that all of this mutilation and injecting of hormones into children was based on, quote, remarkably weak evidence, and that children have been let down by medical professionals. Quote, the reality is we have no good evidence on the long-term outcomes of these interventions, such as puberty blockers, to manage gender-related distress. It is unusual for us to give a potentially life-changing treatment to young people and then not know what happens to them in adulthood, the report said. It took 4 years for them to come to that conclusion. Well, it's out now. J.K. Rowling has been tweeting about it, indicating that, this is what she's been saying. We need to stand up for women and not mutilate these kids. At one point, one of J.K. Rowling's followers said they were waiting for Harry Potter stars Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson to, quote, give you a very public apology, safe in the knowledge that you will forgive them. Apparently, they both came out pro-trans, pro-mutilating kids. Rowling replied, not safe, I'm afraid. Celebrities who cozied up to a movement intent on eroding women's hard-won rights and who use their platforms to cheer on the transitioning of minors, they can save their apologies for traumatized detransitioners and vulnerable women reliant on single-sex spaces. So she says, she's not saying don't apologize. She's not going to accept their apology. It's not for her, she's saying. Apologize to the kids whose lives you're screwing up. Meanwhile, another Brit on a different show, Julia Hartley-Brewer, she was on her, she, I guess, hosted a transgender activist, and here's how that went. Take a listen to this.
My next guest, who is Shivani Dave. She is a journalist and a presenter at Virgin Radio, just down the corridor. Good afternoon to you, Shivani.
Good afternoon, Julia. You know my pronouns are they, them. How are you doing?
Yeah. Thank you for telling me your pronouns. I use correct grammar. So the only thing I would need to refer you to is to your face would be you. But I'm not being rude. You can choose your pronouns. You can choose what you want to call yourself, but you don't get to require me to use incorrect grammar and factually incorrect things. You're not a plural. You're one person, and you're a female person. So I will use she and her. Thank you very much.
Do what you like, I guess.
Well, there you are. You didn't need to tell me then, did you?
Why are we following them? Why are we so slow? We have to wait for the Brits to do it first. Boy, things have changed. You know what hasn't changed? The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.